Mystic Harbor, Arcade and Golf, and Go-Kart City. I'll play some mini golf, go-karting. Also checking out these batting cages that I used to hit on a long time ago. So it's gonna be a fun day. Taking a nice rest stop on the pirate ship here during the mini golfing, giving you our first hand of note. I look down at pocket sixes in the big blind. There is an under the gun open and a middle position call. And with pocket sixes in the big blind, this looks like a great spot to just take our pot odds and our equity for a set mine. So we also make the call. We're going 3 ways to a flop, and flop comes 5, king, 7. Interesting flop here for pocket sixes. We flop ourselves a nice 3-card straight. The under the gun player continues actually for a down bet. They go down to $20 into 2 other players, which is really interesting. This feels kind of weak. The middle position player calls, and there's no way I'm going to fold a 3-card straight here with a lot of improving turns for a reduced price. So we make the call on the flop. The turn is a card that gives us a lot more equity. The turn comes a 4. The under the gun player checks, so I figure they're not going to be very strong a lot of the time. The middle position player decides that they are going to try to steal this pot. They bet 50, and I think 6 is a great bluff candidate here, open-ended. So I raise to $150, and the under the gun player does fold as we suspected, and the middle position player makes the call. I'm planning to jam a lot of rivers here to try to take this pot down, and the river is a very interesting one. It is a 6, gives us a set, but puts 4 to the straight on the board. Following up the game plan, we decide that we are going to just put the rest of our chips in the middle here. And we're probably going to be ahead of a lot of what the middle position player can have. So we put the rest of our chips in, and they sit and think for a little bit, and eventually they decide on the fold, turning over 5-5 for the flopped set. It's a very, very tough laydown on their side, but it was 4 to a straight on the board. But starting off the session pretty good, feeling pretty good about that one. I felt like I played that pretty well. Second hand of note here, we pick up ace-king offsuit in middle position. We're going to be the first ones to raise it in this pot. We're going to be raising it to $25. The big blind is the only one that decides that they're going to play along. The big blind calls, and we go heads up to a flop. Flop comes queen, jack, 8. Very close. We've got a gutter and 2 overs. Definitely a solid bluff candidate here to continue with. So we're going to size up here a little bit. We're going to bet $40. The big blind decides that they've got a hand, and they're going to call. The turn breaks out. Doesn't bring any flush or any straight draw in, even though we have the big straight draw. And we're really going to go for it here. We're going to bet $100, and the big blind decides that he's going to let it go. So a nice little one for the vlog. Not really a hand of note, but we did manage to somehow pick up pocket 10s like 3 different times in a row and win small little pots with them. So that's always nice, you know, raise pre-flop, bet the flop, take it down. A nice good couple ones of those with pocket 10s. Feeling pretty good about the session so far. Our third true hand of note, we're on the button. We look down at ace-7 of clubs, and we're also looking at 4 limpers to us. Now, ace-7 suited is a nice hand, but it's not strong enough to raise over 4 limpers. So we decide to limp behind to look for that nut flush and hopefully win a big pot. However, the big blind decides that he does have a hand that he wants to raise over 5 people. So the big blind raises to 20, which is really confusing because he's not going to get any folds for $20 over a limp of $5. And even if he wants all of us in, if he has aces, even if we all have completely random ranges, aces is, you know, 50% at best against 5 random ranges. But I digress. Big blind raises to $20. All the limpers call. We're going 6 ways to a flop, and the flop comes ace, queen, jack, 1 club. So we have top pair in the backdoor nut flush draw. The big blind decides he's going to continue for $45, another really small bet into this relatively large pot, and somehow all the other limpers fold. Now I feel like the 20 pre-flop and the 45 here is just not very strong. I think he's just trying to take it down. So I am going to float for this price with top pair in the backdoor nut flush draw, and so we make the call. The turn is a nice card for our possible range. The turn is another jack. And so even if he does have like an ace-king type hand, he's going to be scared of a lot of jacks because we have a lot of jacks in our button range here. So the under the gun player decides, or sorry, the big blind player decides that he is going to check. And this confirms my suspicion that he is relatively weak. So we really go for it here. We bet $100, really trying to take this one from him, force him out of this pot. And the big blind does call. So going into this river, I'm really not sure what the big blind could even have at this point. The range is super awkward. However, the river is a really interesting card. It's a third jack. So we now have jacks full, and I feel like we're chopping. So after the big blind checks, I decide to check it back because I really feel like we're not going to be getting the big blind to fold a lot of hands, and we're gonna be chopping at best. So I decide to check it back. I show the ace and we're good. So I really have no idea what the big blind could have had in this situation, but we take a nice healthy pot that we didn't really expect to win. So still feeling pretty good about this session. Last hand we're going to talk about here for this session, we look down at the black jacks in the small blind. There's a middle position limp and a button raised at $20. Definitely going to be 3-betting here with the pocket jacks over the button raise and the limp. We 3-bet up to $65 with a good hand. Both the limper and the button make the call, so we're going 3 ways to a flop. Kind of an interesting flop for the black jacks. Comes 7, 8, 9 with 2 diamonds. I decide that I'm going to continue here. I've got an overpair, got to get some value, so I bet $100. The limper makes the call and the button folds. So I'm kind of scared of the limper's range here a little bit more than the button's range. I feel like they're going to have some interesting type hands here, but I feel like on this wet of a board, I would have gotten raised if our opponent had 2 pair or a straight or a set. So I feel like they've got maybe a 1-pair hand or a draw, something like that. So we're going into a turn here. Turn, not the greatest card. If the limper did decide to float with a couple overcards and a flush draw, the turn comes the king, an offsuit king. I decide that I'm going to check here with pocket jacks as I now have 2nd pair and a good bluff catcher. I'm going to decide that I'm going to go check call in this hand. The limper decides to check back, and the river is another really odd card. It comes in offsuit 7. So now if our opponent had something like 6-7 with the straight draw, they've now improved to 3 of a kind. So I decide to check, prepared to just call most bets. But our opponent decides to also check back, and our opponent turns over pocket 10s for a very strong hand they could have definitely maybe gotten us to full jacks with. But we take another nice sized pot here and end the night on a good note. That's gonna wrap up our second vlog session. Kind of a short one, kind of a short session. We were in only for about 3 hours. We into the game for $600, out of the game for $1,350, booking a net win of $750 over the course of 3 hours. Really super satisfied with this session, solid, happy with how I played, and super excited to get back out there. But we're gonna get some go-karting in. It's worth it. Wrapping up here at Mystic Harbor, Arcade and Golf and Go-Kart City. We had such a fun time. Good to get some exercise, good to get outside. Keep your body healthy, keep your mind healthy. This is Runner Poker. Have a good one.
Oh, so close.